Colorado. This is the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. It is our December 1st, 2020 meeting. We've had a little technical difficulties getting folks into the Zoom. If you could bear with us just a bit, we've got one commissioner who is still working on getting in, and then we would take the roll and initiate our proceeding. Okay, hearings manager Amaro, if you could go ahead and take the roll call, and we'll hope that Commissioner McGowan is going to be able to make it here in a bit.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Gibbs?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Mesner?
Here.
Commissioner Nanjapa?
Here.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
And Commissioner Bogue?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 out of 7 commissioners present. Actually, 6 out of 7, excuse me, until Ms. McGowan joins us.
Okay, great. And we know that she is fervently doing her best to join us. So welcome, everyone. We have 60 some odd participants. Appreciate everyone being with us this morning on a yet again 2020 virtual Zoom meeting. We will move into our agenda. Having accomplished roll call, we will now turn to general public comment. And I believe that we had one individual sign up for public comment. Hearings manager Amaro, can you please call upon the individual who desired public comment, and we will give him 3 minutes to testify.
Certainly. That is Mark Cutright, and I will add him right now.
And for the record, Commissioner McGowan is now with us, and she can hear us, although she does not appear to be visual. But thank you, Commissioner McGowan. We are proud that you're with us. We now have 7 out of 7, and we have our public commenter, Mr. Cutright.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mark Cutright. I served on this commission during the last major rule revision from 2007 to 2011. We sat through hundreds of hours of hearings, as well as reviewed over 25,000 pages of written testimony. Today, it pains me to say this because I know and respect many of the staff on the commission for the job that they perform. However, because of the actions of the commission with the bogus forms and the incompetence they've shown, tarnishes the entire COGCC. The regulated community needs to trust their regulators. The commission staff will handle, they need to be reassured that the commission staff will handle any issues or requests fairly, and that trust is gone. The public and the regulated community were assured during the recent Senate Bill 181 process that with the move from a technical commission to the newly formatted political commission, they'd be able to rely on the technical expertise of the COGCC professional staff. The recent email controversy with the bogus forms show the staff is neither professional nor even technically competent. If the people responsible for these forms had any clue about what the hardworking men and women who make up the oil and gas workforce do day in and day out, working to bring energy to the people, they would not be making derogatory jokes about the industry. And this is not an isolated incident. It is a systemic problem. And when I say the problem is systemic, it is twofold. I mean, the lack of respect shown the industry, and 2, the lack of experience. As proved, unfortunately, can only offer anecdotal evidence. The regulated community of oil and gas companies won't bring this up because of fear of reprisal from the commission. By no longer having oil and gas interests in Colorado, and I can and I will. I have oil and gas projects in 5 of the 7 neighboring states bordering Colorado. When crews come from Colorado to work on my projects, they express relief that the COGCC is not involved. They say this because if a COGCC inspector is on location, the same job can take up twice as long, with costs running thousands of dollars per hour. The extra cost can be significant. It's not that we as an industry don't want inspections. We welcome them because we have nothing to hide and are proud to show how well we do our jobs. But due to the inexperience and lack of training of COGCC employees, work is needlessly delayed. Today, I offer not just criticism, but solutions as well. The commission needs to create a feedback system on their people that offers anonymity so that they can see where the problems are. You need to expand training of all field personnel relevant to procedures and industry practices. And field work experience. I think everyone at the COGCC needs to spend more time with the regulated community, not just the attorney and landmen that they normally see, but with the actual folks that do the work to see exactly what they do. This includes the authors of the email. They spent a week job shadowing a pumper, seeing how hard they work to do their jobs. Maybe they will have a better understanding of the industry and won't be compelled to write joke memos like they did. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cutright. Ms. Amaro, did we have others with public comment this morning?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is a report from the Executive Director's Office. Commissioner Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see you all. And I haven't been able to give an update for a few weeks, so I just wanted to share with you kind of big picture what we're doing at the Department of Natural Resources, minus COGCC, since you're all acutely aware of what you're all doing right now. To give you an update on COVID-19, we statewide numbers right now, we're at about 232,000 positive cases. That is from numbers from yesterday at 4 p.m. The state has also tested 1.754 million people so far. And here at the Department of Natural Resources, as of right now, we've had 62 positive cases for folks that work for the DNR. Knock on wood, we're very thankful that not one of those folks have gone to the hospital yet. But we know as the numbers are continuing to climb that, you know, the numbers on average, it's about 1 in 41, you know, have COVID. So, you know, if about a month ago you didn't really have friends or neighbors or family members that have tested positive, you likely probably do now. So I really ask you to do a few things. Wear a mask, continue to wear a mask. I'm sure you're wearing a mask. Continue to social distance, and to the best of your ability, try to socialize with folks, you know, just within your own household. Next, I want to share with you updates from the governor's budget proposal that he submitted a few weeks ago, and just give you all really some high level areas. The governor's budget included a total of $316.8 million for the Department of Natural Resources. Really helps to fund some of our high priority programs, including, you know, maintaining our funding for COGCC, Parks and Wildlife, Division of Water Resources, and Water Conservation Board. Also, as a result of one of the worst wildfires in, you know, history, and our continued drought challenges that we have, you know, 78% of the state right now is in what's called D3 or D4 drought. So it's been challenging to say the least. And we had 3 of our state's largest wildfires in state history go on at about the same time. And, you know, it's bad when, you know, I'm a wildland firefighter, and one of the fires that was actually like closest to where I live up in Summit County, we had what's called the Williams Fork fire. And that burned about 14,000 acres. And honestly, it's like something that I barely even knew was going on, because everyone was focused on, you know, these large scale, you know, 200,000 plus acres that were going on. So as a result of the challenging wildfire season, the governor submitted requesting 2 installments of $10 million for 2 grant programs that will provide immediate support and recovery for restoration projects, and then also money towards kind of long-term investments for wildfire mitigation, forest and watershed restoration. And so this includes right off the bat for the supplemental request, $6 million for the current fiscal year to support the forest restoration and wildfire risk mitigation grant program. And that is administered through the Colorado State Forest Service. And then also $4 million to support the Water Conservation Board's watershed restoration program. That deals with a lot of kind of after fires, like the flooding, the water quality, the water quantity. There's some of the grants can be used for modeling, analysis. So that's really, really important to move forward. And I'm very hopeful that the legislative leadership at the Capitol will support these governor proposals. But also moving forward for fiscal year 21-22, the governor has requested $5 million each for these two programs moving forward. So the Forest Restoration Wildfire Risk Mitigation Grant Program is really designed for counties, municipalities, HOAs, forest health collaborative groups can apply for these monies, but it's proactive forest health treatments, on the ground, defensible space, and so forth. The governor also requested part of the stimulus package will include $20 million to support one-time targeted funds to support our state parks. As I think many of you know, the increase that we've seen with, I would say, outdoor recreation in general, but our parks are really definitely experiencing a lot of visitation numbers, which is really a positive, at the end of the day. But this $20 million will go towards everything from, new campgrounds, improvement for amenities, increased recreational opportunities. And, we're seeing about 15 million visitors at our state parks a year right now. And the numbers are continuing to include, so, rise right now. So that's, important to help moving forward. Also, more specifically, in addition to helping our state parks, on October 30th, the governor had a soft opening for our 42nd state park, our Fisher's Peak State Park, and that's in Trinidad. Really exciting. We have about 250 acres that are open right now. We're doing a major analysis. This is just an amazing piece of property. It's about 19,200 acres. It includes 3 exits all along I-25. So just imagine, you have this massive piece of land, and so we are now, determining where the best locations are for trails, where the best locations are to kind of protect for, wildlife habitat. So we're doing a thorough investigation of that right now as we work to plan and open up new acres of land for that particular state park. The governor also signed at that Fisher's Peak soft opening, the Outdoor Regional Partnerships Executive Order. This is really pretty cool concept where it sets forward a process to form what's called outdoor regional partnerships. And so the plan is to work with local communities and try to look at the landscape as not in terms of, state, federal, tribal, private lands, but really look at, if a community wants to put particular trail from point A to point B, what people have to be at the table to really give local communities some advice and kind of partner on where best those trails should be and really help them, along the way. So that's really great. And then also we had a new park nomination process too that the governor announced at that Fisher's Peak soft opening, because we do want to explore, opening up new state parks, not just our Fisher's Peak one. So we are encouraging folks around the state to get their nominations to Colorado Parks and Wildlife so we can really take a look at what the possibilities are. There are potentially private lands that could be turned into a state park. There could be county open space that ties into BLM land or U.S. Forest Service land. So we really want to hear from local communities on the possibility of new state parks. And then a few other items. We have the Colorado Geographic Naming Board That is brand new. The governor signed an executive order on that, and that is housed within the Department of Natural Resources. So this particular advisory board will advise the governor on potential name changes in the state that will then be carried to what's called the National Geographic Naming Board. So we haven't had a geographic naming board for many years in Colorado, so it's great to have that again. And then we're also continuing to work with U.S. Forest Service on our shared stewardship MOU. That's really important too, to really look at landscape scale collaboration with the U.S. Forest Service. And then also continuing to work on our wildlife corridors, executive order. And then last but not least, the voters have supported Proposition 116, which is the wolf reintroduction. So that directs Parks and Wildlife to work with stakeholders to develop a wolf management plan and to work towards bringing wolves back into the state of Colorado. So we are working hard on that as well. So a lot going on at the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm happy to answer any questions if any of you have any.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibbs. We do have questions. Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And not a question, just a comment, but I did take the opportunity to just do a drive and run down and take a look at the new Fisher Peak State Park, and it is an impressive landscape down there. And I was really awestruck with how cool that is, and so well done on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And with that, we just had tremendous partners from day one: GOCO, Trust for Public Lands, the Nature Conservancy. Let's see, Parks and Wildlife, of course, the local community, the county commissioners, the city of Trinidad. So we were able to find the sweet spot with that, and that's just been really fun to work on. But thank you.
Awesome. Look forward to getting down there as well. Others with thoughts, questions, comments? Great. Great to get a EDO report there, Commissioner Gibbs. Thanks for informing all of our 68 participants with regard to things that are happening at DNR and with the governor and otherwise. At this point, we would turn to the next agenda item, which is a report from the director. Ms. Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. And I do want to note that Commissioner Hackett has joined us. And I think he was listening in to the entirety of the meeting, but it took us a little while to get him bumped up to a panelist, but wanted to make sure everybody knew that. I guess I would just start with, again, my gratitude to the commissioners, to our partners, staff for the work done on mission change rulemaking. And with that, we couldn't have done any of this without DNR and our partners at CDPHE, including the Water Quality Control Division, Solid Hazardous Waste, and Air Pollution Control Division. It's been a very monumental effort, and staff has transitioned from being entirely focused on rulemaking to entirely focused on implementation and working towards the January 15th effective date. To that end, we are continuing to finalize forms and instructions for those forms to make sure that once the new rules become effective, we're in a place where we can immediately begin implementing and working through submittals from industry. We are also working on guidance that will be complementary to those forms and instructions, and also are consistent with a number of the different pieces or places where the commission had asked for further work from staff. We are having an operator meeting, I think, on the 15th to really start walking through the nuts and bolts of what the new permit forms will look like, so that, again, operators can start planning, we can start having dialogue, and we can also start to identify places where we might need more information or more assistance. The other component of all of this is, especially as it relates to our relationships with local governments, we're starting to work more closely with local governments and really engage with them to understand how our permitting processes can work together, can be complementary. That is also the same across with our partners at CDPHE and Parks and Wildlife in terms of working closely to make sure that the implementation of these rules goes as seamlessly as it can, and also looking to our partners at the federal level as well to make sure we understand how this new system will work. It's a very dynamic opportunity as we look to kind of transition and turn over a bit of a new leaf as it relates to the work that we are doing, and we will be working very hard on that for the next 6 weeks and in the months and years to come. So I don't have a huge update in terms of here are all the individual steps, but wanted to give everybody the framework for what we think the next 6 weeks looks like. So with that, Chair, I would turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Director Murphy. And we commissioners all know the depth and breadth of the work that is ongoing at Commission as we move toward a transition, and appreciate all that outreach. We will look forward to doing whatever we can to assist in the process and look forward to a seamless transition. With that, the next matter on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have questions from commissioners on consent agenda? And I see Commissioner McGowan has raised her hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions, sorry, and I did warn Director Murphy ahead of time. The first set of questions I have are on some of the pooling requests, and they're not concerns that I have. They're me realizing that I perhaps need some more training on the requests, but the first two PDC requests in particular were quite difficult for me to follow. What was changing to what and why, and how many times the Commission had updated requests from PDC. And I think it's, sorry, I'm gonna look at the questions that I sent. It's the 2001000040 and 46. And it appears to me that over time, maybe the operator is trying to figure out the best way to pool resources. But those two in particular were hard for me to follow, and I don't have a concern with them, but I'm just letting folks know that I had trouble following those two pooling requests. And then I also needed a reminder, perhaps from staff, about the difference between a working interest owner and an unleased owner, both who appear to participate or asked to participate in the pooling and can decline. But and perhaps we've gone over this, but I don't remember the difference between those two. And then I had some questions after we go through that about the Sandridge order finding violation. So maybe if we could start with the PDC.
Whom from staff would like to address Commissioner McGowan's questions to start? Director Murphy?
Yeah, let me, maybe we can jump into the second set of questions and pull up the enforcement and hearings officer to kind of talk through the specifics of those applications, if that's amenable. And I think AAG Davenport would be well poised to answer the questions about the owner and the differences between the two, if that's okay, Mr. Davenport.
AAG Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner McGowan, your question in regard to the difference between an unleased mineral owner and a working interest owner. And I'll preface this by saying Commissioner Najapa asked some questions about pooling during the rulemaking hearing, and so it may be appropriate for us to have an executive session on this, or a work session on this as well. In general, a working interest owner is a lessee. It's someone who has taken a lease of mineral interests from a mineral interest owner. I think that's the most common situation of a working interest owner, though working interest owner can describe a wide variety of interest as well, and can be more of a general description of interests other than an actual leased mineral interest owner. And I would welcome additional insight from Commissioner Gonzalez, given that this is what he was in the weeds on for a long time as well. And so I think that also describes generally the difference between a working interest owner and an unleased mineral interest owner as well. An unleased mineral interest owner is someone who owns the minerals and has not entered into a lease for the development of those minerals with any other person.
Commissioner McGowan?
Sorry, just for clarification, an unleased interest owner owns the minerals, and hasn't said to somebody else, I will transfer these to you, or for an amount, you may lease my minerals. Is that what you're saying? Sorry, sorry.
But no, I think that's an important distinction, and thank you for the question. I think you can think about leasing in the same way that you can think about leasing an apartment or a house, in the sense that it is not a transfer of the ownership interest. You are a mineral interest owner would be leasing their minerals to someone for development, to an operator, for example, who would then go out and drill a well or wells and produce that oil and gas, and then the lease terms would include a royalty, so that that mineral owner, once they've leased, would receive a royalty on any oil and gas that's produced, proportionate to their share of that entire drilling and spacing unit.
Commissioner McGowan, follow up?
I think I'm going to really appreciate some sort of a working session.
Very good. Director Murphy, did you have more?
We are working on it. And I see that we've got Enforcement Officer Costanet online, and he would be available to answer the questions about the Sandridge OFV, if that would be appropriate at this point in time.
I think so. Commissioner McGowan, did you want to repeat your question now that we've got the appropriate enforcement officer on board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a list of questions, and then maybe it can start a dialogue. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about what a triplex pump unit is and whether or not it's commonly used in oil and gas operations. And if the answer is yes, it's commonly used, have we seen similar types of failures from other operators, and should we be worried about this particular type of equipment? Or is this more of something that happened with Sandridge? And are we confident that Sandridge now has this issue under control? And this is a hypothetical, but I'm just curious to know if the rules that we just passed could have helped address some of the issues that we saw, at least in my reading of the order. Could we have addressed it earlier? For example, I'm just curious to know if some of the new rules that we just adopted would have maybe helped address the issues that were found in this order faster, or prevented them. And I know that that's a difficult question to answer, but it seemed to me that this was pretty repetitive and it took us a long time to finally address it.
Mr. Costanet, we have you impaneled. If you could unmute.
Thank you, Chair Robbins. Commissioner McGowan, I guess on the issue of giving you some details about triplex pump usage, I know that a representative of Sandridge is also available on this call. He would probably be able to give you more detail in terms of, I guess, historic use and whether use of triplex pumps is widespread. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of if there are other operators using this kind of pump technology in the field. Some alternatives to a triplex pump is a downhole pump or a rod and plunger pump that you typically see with a pump jack. That's what I can give you in terms of my knowledge of triplex pump usage and usage of the pump by other operators in Colorado. As far as confidence that this is under control, I can tell you that the last chronological incidents addressed in this matter occurred in February of 2019. Since that time, there have been no other incidents or releases caused by a failure of a triplex pump being used by Sandridge. Again, as to other operators, I just don't know. I don't have that information. So I would say from enforcement staff's perspective, we're confident that they've put in place a preventive maintenance inspection plan to prevent these issues from happening in the future. And as I said, as of yesterday's check of the records, and since that February 2019 incident, there have been no other failures of triplex pumps like we see in the incidents that are involved in this docket. Then as to your last question about whether the recently passed rules would have had an impact on this, I'm not sure what rules you're thinking about and which rules and what you're thinking may have helped prevent this. So I don't have a great answer for you on that one.
Thank you, Matt. And I may see if Mr. Leonard wants to add a little bit of context to some of the more operational related questions, Commissioner McGowan, if that'd be helpful.
Mr. Leonard, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director Murphy. Commissioner McGowan, I would not say that jet pumps are widely used across the state, but they are used. We have seen their use in the northern part of the DJ Basin and obviously in the Sandridge area. Mostly used where there's a larger production of water, and that's the way the pump works. It's the pumps actually pump water down the wellbore to, for lack of a better definition or better, create a vortex and push the produced fluids back up the hole. And then it separates the oil out of the water and reuses the water to go back down the hole again to do the same thing. As I recall, both of Sandridge's incidents were separate, although they did occur on triplex on the pumps. One was due to vibration and the other was due to the way the pump was electrically wired, okay? The wiring actually rubbed against the frame and caused the spark. The other one, the vibration from the pump caused some of the plumbing to fail. As to whether the new rules would have stopped this, that's a good question. We don't have a specific rule that may have stopped it. Regular inspection on the one that rubbed the wire in half, that would have been hard to see anyway. So it's a good question as to whether the new rules would have stopped any of these incidents, if that helps at all.
Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm wondering, and really this is not like a gotcha, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it so it doesn't feel like that. In reading it, it seems like maybe the folks who were involved in putting the equipment in maybe needed better training, but I'm also wondering if there's a problem with the actual equipment and if we should ask operators who also are using this similar pump to look at it, to go out and inspect their pump and make sure that they're not having similar issues, or if that's not really what the problem is.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you. Yes. So in the root cause analysis, we do require the operator to provide us with what training, policies, procedures, practices they have implemented to prevent the same process. And this transfers over into the contractors that provide these pumps. And it was found, for instance, again, on the one that the electrical failure, there was a rewiring of all of the pumps that contractor had to make sure that wire, that set of wires didn't run through the base of the skid, but rather ran over the top where it could be more easily inspected.
Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that contractor didn't just make corrections for Sandridge, they made corrections to all of those pumps that they installed for any other operators?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay.
I don't know how many other pumps they had in the state at the time.
Great. Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner McGowan, for asking questions about this. I also had questions about this particular enforcement order, and it's more of an education for me, but we've indicated on this one that there were a number of incidents, and we've determined there was a pattern of violation, and we've provided the enforcement action to this point. My question is if we continue to see a pattern of violation, from this particular operator in these scenarios, what the next step is from a process standpoint.
Director
Chair,
Murphy.
thank you. So, Commissioner Messner, I think the pattern of violation question is set out in both the Act and rules as established, and it requires fairly specific orders from the Commission to determine it, and then the Act sets out that we could suspend, I believe, their Form 1. We might want Mr. Farron in to answer questions about that, or we could kind of set up a, in concert with kind of a pooling discussion, a further discussion about enforcement and the tools and how it works and what we do. I know that we kind of dropped you all into kind of the operational side of our rules very quickly and very early in July and haven't really closed the loop on some of our other rule series. So if it would be helpful to have Mr. Farron, our enforcement supervisor, prepare and give a enforcement 101, we can have that done.
Yeah, I think, Director Murphy, that would be helpful. I think that I and probably the other commissioners would look forward to the place that we're in now outside of the frenzy of rulemaking to have those sorts of educational pieces before us. So yes, we can talk further about that. Other commissioners with questions? Commissioner Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question also about the Sandridge OFB. I noticed that those locations, the pads in question, were located within sensitive water resource areas. And looking at the Form 2A, it looks like maybe that determination was made due to close proximity to the down gradient surface water feature, or perhaps it was because of relatively shallow groundwater depth. And I'm curious, I didn't see an explicit mention in the OFB or the supporting documents indicating whether or not that spill impacted or threatened to impact waters of the state. So that's my first question is, was there an impact or a threat to impact waters of the state? And if so, was the Water Quality Control Division notified as I believe they should have been?
Director Murphy.
Thank you for the question. Enforcement Officer Castanet, can you please provide an update?
Mr. Castanet.
Thank you, Chair Robbins. Commissioner Hackett, there were no impacts to waters of the state as a result of these incidents. The releases were all on contained on the disturbed locations. Additionally, out of the 5 incidents, 3 of the 5, the releases were contained within line containment that were around these pump houses. And out of the remaining 2 of the 5, 1 had 5 barrels that went outside of that containment, but a remediation project was opened and that was conducted by Sandridge and then subsequently closed. The last incident out of those 2, there was a trace amount of the release that went outside of the containment.
Commissioner Hackett, can you follow up?
Thank you for that explanation. That's helpful. I don't have any additional questions on that one.
Commissioner Najapa.
Mr. Chair, and thanks again for these questions. I also was curious, similarly to what Commissioner Hackett just asked with respect to the sensitive wildlife areas that were impacted, but you may have just answered, or Mr. Castanet may have just answered the question with the remediation. But I was just kind of curious, knowing more about what we've got in the new set of rules, what are the current requirements, or what were they asked to do as part of that remediation?
Director Murphy.
Mr. Castanet, do you want to review that, please?
Yeah, Commissioner Nanjapa, off the top of my head, I believe there was, I don't have it in front of me, I believe there was soil sampling and then a removal of that soil. So I'd have to bring up the Form 27s for that remediation to give you more detail than that on what was actually conducted. And I'm happy to do that if you just give me a moment.
Commissioner Nanjapa.
Thank you, Mr. Costinet. And I don't want to take undue time. I could maybe follow up outside of the hearing just to learn a little bit more about what was done. But I just wanted to know that there was, you know, a remediation that was conducted and it sounds like was approved and closed. So that mostly answers my question. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Costinet, encourage you and Commissioner Nanjapa to perhaps get together on that point. Director Murphy?
I was actually just going to offer to connect Commissioner Nanjapa with Alex Fisher, our environmental West Slope supervisor, as I think he might be the best science-minded human to respond to that instead of legally-minded human.
Great. Perfect sense. Other commissioners with questions on any matter on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. The recommended orders will become orders unless anyone wants to pull them off the agenda. So just because we were talking about one of them, the Sandridge in particular, just want to note that for the commissioners. And looking at our agenda, we have come to the place of commissioner comments. Do we have any comments at this point? Do we have any comments from the director at this point? Do we have any comments from AAG Davenport, who has unmuted himself conspicuously?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I should have muted myself again.
All right. With that, we have concluded the agenda for today, and we would look to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Looks like we're adjourned. Thank everybody for your attendance today. I believe we have a meeting next Tuesday as regularly scheduled, and we will see you then. Bye.